I would like to discuss about the spiritual world and the ongoing spiritual battle. When you as an individual begin to cultivate sovereignty, nobility, and creativity, you are deconstructing the the matrix. The matrix is created by a multitude of agendas. And these multitude of agendas, we can get into conspiracy and talk about the powers that were, right, the Illuminati, right. There's all kinds of conspiracies regarding these higher ups, we'll say, these higher up agendas. We can even go back into the stories of the Anunnaki, and the Anunnaki supposedly, they being higher up, right, higher up beings, elite beings, right, seen as gods, came and used human beings for basically to mine gold, or to mine a precious organic material that they would take back to their planet, right. There's all kinds of stories like that, where there are these gods, right, these higher ups, right. In our current day, it's known as like the priests, right. The preachers are the higher ups, and we go to surrender to them, the preacher, the priest, to be healed of our sins, right. We're born a sinner, we die a sinner, that kind of sort of surrender, right, to the Godhead, right? Or the Godhead can be the Father, right? For a lot of us, in women, in our not so distant past, right? The father or the husband was the God, right? The Godhead, right? So a lot of us women have been in, right, relationship, not just, I'm from the United States of America, but many places outside of North America, there is a lot of the husband or the father is the Godhead, right? And we as women must surrender to the Godhead, right? And the only way we can protest as women, since we can't vocalize, express ourselves, is through sex. So we protest using sex. So we withhold sex, or we create some sort of blockage in sex to kind of bring the husband down, right? To get the husband to listen to us, right? So when it comes to the agendas, right, on this planet, and we talk about the stories of the revolutions, right, the revolutionaries, right, and all these sort of spiritual scripts, not just the Bible, but even in the Quran, and even in, when we say Hindu and Buddhism, or the Bhagavad Gita, there are these sort of individuals who are considered like saints or warriors or earth angels, and they cultivate their sovereignty, their nobility, and their creativity, and in doing so they face great adversity from the matrix, right. The matrix, basically the agendas, right. And the agendas basically are ways in which we as a human being neglect to fulfill our creative destiny, right, right, our creative destiny. And that's why we usually associate this adversity as a destroyer, right, a devil, or an entity that is wants to strip us of our power, and leave us powerless, or chain us up or imprison us, right, so that we can't express ourselves, so that we can't cultivate sovereignty, nobility, and creativity. So we all have experienced this spiritual battle within ourselves, right? We can see it as some sort of devil or entity, but I view it as more something inside of ourselves. We call it an internal conflict, right? Internal conflict that we have with ourselves, in our own ability to express our sovereignty, nobility, and creativity. So when you begin to cultivate your inner power, right, to shine your light, to become empowered as a human being, what happens is, we know this world is quite interesting, right? In the matrix of it all, there's so many distractions. right? And even in many of spiritual scripts, it's like if you're not on your target, it almost seems for like a minute, something else can you know can create something that you may not necessarily desire, right? Now we have our free will choices, and there's many possibilities, there's many realities that we can take part in, right? Higher realities, lower realities. And it's really the vision, right? It's the vision of that we see within these sort of earth angels and saints and warriors, right? We call the warrior as the archer pose, we call the saint as the prayer, we call the earth angel as devoted to creativity. All of these sort of dedications are about vision, right? The warrior has the vision dedicated to the archer, right? The saint has the dedication to prayer, right? And the earth angel has the dedication to creativity, right? So all of these sort of, we call them masters, right? There's sort of a master vibration. There's a sense of paying attention, there's a sense of concentration, right? And there's a sense of intention, knowing oneself and knowing what you want, right? So in the saying is, it's praying to know oneself, right? To know what I want, right? How I, and for the saint, it's how can I better serve, right? How can I better serve? That's what I want. And to know myself is to pray, right? And to the warrior, right, to know myself is to have the sort of strength or the caliber to be myself amongst an environment that is very belittling or very aggressive and kind of sort of attacks you. And then to know what I want is to have that sort of precision, that sort of priority, so that sort of organization where I can really cut through, again, all of the nonsensical dilemmas and distractions and illusions that want to kind of, you know, take me out of my archer stance. And then the earth angel, right? The earth angel is, I know who I am through the expression of my beauty. I know what I want through the creativity that nourishes society and the community, right? So there are different kind of, we say, realms of mastery, right? From the warrior, from the saint to the earth angel, right? And a lot of it is about having a vision, right? Is like the basic kind of thing, having a vision. Because like I said, even with this technology age, there's so much information that's just spilling out into our minds constantly from all the social media that we take in a day, which a lot of us take in like hours and hours of information constantly. And if without a sense of vision, we're just going to be just kind of taking it in and just kind of getting in this total confusion. Because the tricky thing about the Matrix and how it kind of, you know, it will get you, right? Again, this isn't just my own sort of speaking. This is, say, lifetimes of, you know, being in it, going through it, right? You know, to be an old soul is to have gone through it many times, right? And have experienced what we learn in many of the spiritual scripts about the human condition and the human struggle and the human battle and the human victory and the spiritual victory, right? And human integrity and human entrapment and imprisonment, right? So the vision, right, is to know oneself and to know what you want, right? Because again, without that vision, the agendas can just get in, because everybody has their own agenda, and that's a kind of spiritual warfare, right? Everybody has their own kind of agenda, right? And if you don't have a clear vision, and if you don't have a sort of, you're not paying attention, and your intention is not very decisive in who you are and what you want, other people, right? Everybody's hunting for spiritual power. That's just what it is, right? And you know, that's kind of the spiritual warfare. They take it where they can get it, right? And that's why in the ancient, not so ancient times, but a lot of the spiritual teachings were given to those who deserved, because to deserve is to actually reach a sort of caliber within yourself where you have gone through all of those, we say, lower vibrations of deception and deceit and all of these lower vibrations of ways that we try to get our spiritual victory, but end up cheating ourselves and end up going backwards, basically, right? You can't cheat yourself in the incarnational mastery, right? Because really what you are in your vibration, you can't lie. You can't, when you die, and say, yeah, I had the spiritual victory, but then you cheated yourself all the way through it, right? And it means you just got to come back and, God just say, okay, you got to, try it again, right? Try it again. Right, and that's what we really don't want. That's what we call the involuntarily incarnating again and again, right? Is because we don't really do the thing, right? But in this earth, we have these experiences, right? We're meant to experience everything. That's why when we strip away judgment, right? When we die and we face our guides and our soul, really there is no judgment. It's like the experience, right? And the experience you've had, right? But we also, not only do we have experience, we also have learning. What did you learn, right? So in the experience, we're meant to learn something. And that's where the great kind of coming back again, right? Because we wanted to learn. Because learning is it's a sense of mastery, right? And mastery is a sense of building yourself up, right? And then also we're meant to serve. So we're meant to develop our creativity. We're meant to have a sense of triumph within the sort of artistry, right? To become skillful and talented and gifted and to have this sense of craftsmanship, right? So in this spiritual world, right, you could there's all kinds of spiritual attacks, right? And that's why we have these protection mantras, and that's why we have these kriyas, these sort of, we say, very old, right? Very, very old kriyas and mantras that are now just circulating pretty much you can find it, it's easily accessible, while back in the day, really, it was only given to those who deserved, right? And again, to deserve was basically you had to show up in a certain way to yourself. You had to show up as in your nobility, right? And again, a lot of people, you can get mantras or you can get kriyas and you don't even have to show up for yourself. You can just just be, just kind of doing coke while you're listening to a mantra, right? You don't even have to sit there and be deserving, right? And the only reason that it's circulating through basically the whole entire the whole entire preservation and protection of the mantras and the kriyas, the reason why it has been deconstructed and the great reveal has now come to those who are ready, because not everybody will be ready, right? Is because we need to accelerate humans' growth and development, right? So in the traditional time of basically getting a mantra, getting a kriya, sometimes it could take a decade for you to actually build up the caliber of nobility within yourself as an individual, to actually be ready to take in the transmission or to take in the sort of become the embodiment of the mantra or the kriya. Or it could be lifetimes. But we know on this planet we don't have decades, we don't have lifetimes to kind of like be deserving and like have the caliber of nobility. We need to accelerate our growth, right? Because we'll just extinct ourselves for the 5th time as a human species, because it's really not about okay, we'll just easy go in a decade and then I'll get the teaching, right? It's more so, no, we need the teachings now, because we need to have a large amount of the populace vibrating at a higher vibration, right? So it's not, okay, we completely just deconstruct the old tradition of deserve, right? And now it's just like, no, it's not about deserve, it's about necessity now, right? So to deserve was you had to become privileged, right? Even if you came from, poverty or came from trauma, like Kuan Yin, right? To deserve it, it was, you had to be privileged, right? And kind of with Kuan Yin and the sort of deserving is that she had it within her she had it in her soul incarnation, right? Her destiny to serve the people, to bring men's healing and creativity to the people. That was a part of her destiny. That was what she wanted in this life, right? And that's what she set up in her many, many other incarnations to have in the incarnation that she was gifted this sort of power of healing, right? She was very masterful at the healing arts, right? Because she was deserving. She set up her, through many, many incarnations, she set up this incarnation to be the one where even amidst the trauma and again, the pain, right, the attack that sometimes happens to individuals, she set it up to, okay, right, I have this trauma, but the deserving is I am going to give myself to this. Could just be as simple as that, right? And that's what makes you deserving, because a lot of people, they don't do that. When they get the trauma, like Kuan Yin, that could be very, very traumatic. They just kind of, they just, a lot of people don't try, right? So in taking back the power amongst the men's trauma is a sense of her claiming the privilege to get the healing arts, and become very masterful. We consider Kuan Yin a master, right? I consider Kuan Yin in the frequency of the earth angel, right? And there's all kinds of sort of mastery sort of energies of even Shakti, right? Consider that like an earth angel, right? Mother Mary, Mary Magdalene, a saint energy, right? We think of Krishna, right? We think of that as a warrior energy, right? And all of the the earth angels, the warriors, they're all about having this spiritual victory, and all about being visionary, right? Being visionary. That's the sense of masterfulness, if that's a word, right? When we think of individuals that we look to even today that have this great victory within them, we consider them like visionary, like Nikola Tesla, Einstein, Da Vinci, Pablo Picasso, right? It could be very subtle. It could be scientific. It could be art, whatever, music, right? There's this sense of the spiritual victory these people have. There's a sense of visionary that's undeniable, right? Visionary means I see into a future self of a higher vibration. I see into my creative destiny, right? I remote view there. I meditate. I visualize. I go there and I see the creative destiny, and I set my sort of projection right there, like a warrior, right? Or like a saint, or like an earth angel, right? And Prince did it. Pablo Picasso, Da Vinci, Nikola Tesla, like they had a particular point they wanted to get to, right? They had a creative destiny that they saw in their remote viewing of themselves, and they wanted it. They needed it, right? And that's why they were able to cut through all these nonsensical things that we get caught in. Like all these visionary people, you don't really hear much about them just lounging around and just like hanging out with just like randoms and like just doing miscellaneous things and just being careless and just being superficial and like egotistic and that kind of thing. We usually don't associate a lot of these true sort of visionaries that were on like a huge creative destiny as that kind of thing. We usually see them as very concentrated and paying attention to the subtle energies underneath the matrix, that if you give if you don't have that sense of independent mindedness, or if you don't have, again, a mantra or kriya, just this internal freedom, right, where you can access energy beyond the dome of whatever you hear or see or whatever they tell you is true, right? You believe it is true kind of thing, right? These individuals tend to have more of an internal compass rather than an outer compass, where they feel like they reliant on this, that, and the other to actually get somewhere, right? They more have this internal compass. And this internal compass, you can also see it as your astrological chart, your natal chart. That's your internal compass, right? It reveals to you basically how you can really cultivate your creative destiny in this life, right? Which is basically what we're all really here to do. But in the spiritual world, right, we again, just like in the great the battles, right, that a lot of the warriors go through, in the great resistance, right, that we have the internal conflict and the outer conflict, where we're faced with our worst nightmare, we're faced with our greatest fear, we're faced with the inner demons and the entities and these things that want to destroy us and want to like bring us down, and just the negativity of it all, right? We're all going to be faced with that at some point, or some way we're going to be faced with that. And how even in many of the spiritual scripts, how we were able to survive is to have a vision and to dedicate ourselves wholeheartedly to that vision, that we become visionary, and it becomes like a blade of truth. Like Kuan Yin, Mother Mary, they were like a sharp blade of truth, where literally you've seen those sort of Japanese blades where they literally fling, and it's almost like they can just cut through a tree and just like one little thing, not even like, just like, that sort of sharpness, like a sharp, have the blade of truth, right? And having that sort of being able to cut through, it gives you this sort of, in the spiritual world, it gives you this protection, but it also gives you this that's why we do so many kriyas and mantras in sort of the yogic science. And even, again, warriors, earth angels, saints, they were practicing these kriyas and mantras like gun-ho, because they knew, right, when you elevate and raise your vibration, you're shaking things up, right? You're shaking things up. And when you shake things up, right, there's agendas in the matrix that they want to, they want to keep going. They want to keep going, right? Right? They want to keep being fed, right? And if you're trying to shake it up, they don't want that. So they'll give you a distraction, or they'll give you the tests, right? And if you fail the test, it can be very monumental in the way that, you can even lose your life, right? Or you can get entangled in something that you could be in for the life with, right? Or these kinds of things, right? Now, we all are protected, right? That's the thing. We're all protected, but we do have free will, right? So we are protected all the time. It's just a lot of us don't really cultivate intuition the way that we should, because how the guides really speak to us is through our intuition, right? But again, our intuition, especially if we've had lifetimes of developing this intuition, you'll find it literally, especially with, this sort of these kriyas and these mantras, you'll find it like, if there's danger that's coming your way, and let's say it's just like real quick, and you don't have, your intuition doesn't have the 3 to 9 seconds to actually like make a choice. Sometimes in the sort of magic of it all is literally, you'll find that it will just disappear. Oh, something will happen that will just push it out. And that's the power of your caliber, your high vibration, your aura, right? That's sort of the power of your spirit guides, right? But we do have free will, meaning if we continue to, let's say, our intuition is speaking to us, and we continue to just like, no, I don't want to do that, we can be like bratty about it, and we keep being fixed on this particular point, this reality, we keep going down this road, right? Even though our intuition is really asking for something else, we can get into that road, and that particular path, unfortunately, can lead to these experiences that may have not been necessary, right? But become necessary because we decided, I want to go down that path, right? So again, there's this planet and this is multi-dimensional. There's so many realities and possibilities, right? And we want the creative destiny, and that's the difference between individuals who like visionaries, who they're the whole incarnation is just really really dedicated on this sort of point of their highest creative destiny, and they continue to build themselves up to to get that right, to get the momentum of that going, so that none of these other possible realities can even get in and try to put them somewhere else, right? There's a difference between that and then a person who, again, a lot of us, we wander, we feel we're lost, and we feel that we're randomly placed here, and we feel like we're miscellaneous, right? Or we become distrustful of our intuition, or we start to not pay attention to ourselves and block out our feelings, whatever it is, right? That creates, we know as like these earthbound energies, right? There's earthbound spirits, and these earthbound spirits are very much just kind of like wandering around, like lost, and like just connecting with like random people because they don't know what they're doing, right? So we create interlocks with people that are not necessary, but they become necessary because we want to experience that. So it's really asking yourself, what do I really want to learn? What do I really want to experience? And what do I want to serve? Right? Because if you're just like, it's a free-for-all, like, I don't really care, just do whatever, like, you'll get whatever. That's the thing. That's the trick of the Matrix, right? You have to have this sort of vision to you, right? And if you don't have a vision, we pray, right, to get the vision, right, or to have the, because if you pray, you will receive. Not in that day or that hour that you said it, but you will receive, because that's how it works. That Mother Earth is a giver. You are a taker. Mother Earth will give to you and will continue to give to you forever. She will give you whatever you need so that you can have spiritual victory, because that's the whole point of coming to Earth, right? And learning and experiencing and serving. It's a sense of spiritual victory. That's kind of what we want, right? Because in spiritual victory, we become very talented. We become very gifted. We become very authentic. We become very very masterful, right? Very knowledgeable, very wise, right? And that's what we all want. But again, in sort of cultivating that and pursuing that, again, we do have to navigate through these lower vibrations of fear and deception and doubt and insecurity and the whole trauma of it all, and the human condition. Because the human condition, unfortunately, has been programmed for us to not have spiritual victory. Right? We've all been programmed to basically believe that we're not, meant to have spiritual victory because there's some reason, right? Some sin or some bad karma or some curse or some whatever it is. That's why we won't have it. So we're all kind of wired to basically not experience our totality, our infinity, our authenticity, but to experience just to be caught in the sort of human condition, right? The human condition, we're not meant to live there. We're meant to revolutionize, evolutionize, and transform it, because the human condition is not our home. Right? We're meant to learn, experience, of course, experience the human condition, learn from it, and serve, right? Better serve the human species, right? So the human condition, again, I've said in other videos, is shame, emotional pain, and feelings of not being good enough. And it's universal, regardless of what status you're born into, rich, poor, black, white, Japan, Australia. We all experience that. And the human condition is the great sort of mountain of our life. Because depending on where we're at in our childhood, it'll be heavy on certain people and not so heavy on other people, depending on the mother, right? Pretending on the mother, the female energies in the household, and how liberated and how much they weed whack through their own human condition, right? And cleared the path. Because some of us, we come into this life and it's like nobody cleared the path. It's like, oh, okay, I guess I got to do the whole thing, right? Where we come in as a soul into the family, and we look at the family and we're like, y'all didn't even, would you just stare at the human condition? Did any of you actually go into it and try to like evolutionize and like try to like clean up some things, like bring some prosperity in? Did y'all do anything? You know, some of us have those sort of families where it's like kind of looking at it, fantasizing. I would love to go and weed back, but I'm gonna do just like a little bit and not even really give it my all, just kind of like a little bit, right? So what's going on right now on this planet, right, in the spiritual world, and as well as the spiritual battle that goes on, is that really the human is breaking down these programs of we're meant to not have spiritual victory, right? Right? We're meant to have the Godheads, and then the humans are sinners, right? We're deconstructing that sort of program, the matrix itself, and all the agendas associated with it, right? Because in order for us to survive as a human species, we need to have a new paradigm on this earth. And with that, a new paradigm, there's new leadership, new economy, new ideologies, new religious sort of culture, and just a new human identity, right? A new sort of a new human, a new human, just say human identity, really, right? And that's the spiritual victory of it all for the human species, right? And a lot of us here on this planet at this time, we get to, those of you who are weed whacking through the jungle for you and on the behalf of you and all of your 7 to 14 generations, right? There's this great, a lot of us come to this earth because there's this great sense of knowledge you can gain from this time period. And many of these cusps periods, there's a great knowledge that you can gain that's stored in your Sattvic record, stored in your arc line. And a lot of people, they're not grabbing it because a lot of people, again, are just like wandering around like no sense of vision, right? Vision, we talk about the eye, the two eye, and the third eye is the center point, right? You talk about finding your center. You know, you have the two eyes which can see, you know, through the tactile senses, can see the matrix and the limitations, the restriction, but the third eye is the center point that cuts through the all the illusions, distractions, programming matrix, and can cut into, the third eye is the center point that cuts into the creative destiny. And then the pressure on the third eye means that you're pulling it into you, like you're pulling it towards you, that creative destiny. So like when you get a creative idea, or you get some sort of vision, or you get psychic gift, or whatever it is, you're pulling that creative destiny into you. And that creative destiny is a higher experience. It's a higher learning sort of, a bit, it's a sort of a, higher learning, right? And then you have more to offer, you have more to serve, right? It's not just a little bit of creativity, it's like a powerful powerhouse of creativity in the serving of yourself and the service to this planet, right? And that's what we all want. That's really, in our astrological chart, that's really kind of there to show us what we need to navigate through and how we can better, cultivate our talents and gifts so that we can, kind of level up and boost ourselves up, right? So again, with the spiritual world in the spiritual battle of it all, is that yes, there are energies. We talk about the negativity, right? And it's there, right? It's definitely there. The earthbound spirits and the kind of war zones that we have, and all the internal conflicts and all the aggressions and the attacks. It's there, right? It's nothing, even Moses experienced it, Mother Mary experienced it, right? She was stabbed in the heart numerous times. Jesus Christ, I mean, so many individuals have faced that, right? And it's not a matter of fact of it coming in, right? It's a matter of fact of having the spiritual victory within yourself, right? The vision, the visionary within yourself to be able to not get caught up in it, right? Because when it comes to you, it wants to feed you, right? All kinds of excuses and reasons and pains and traumas and all these all these reasons why you shouldn't try, or why you shouldn't continue, or why you shouldn't pursue, or why you should just go back and forth and be wishy-washy with your destiny, and be indecisive with your destiny, and procrastinate, delay, and get interlocked with these people that maybe you're not for your higher destiny. It'll create all these sort of reasons why you should go for that, because it's easy, it's comfortable, right? It's known to you. It's not gonna create so much change in you or change around you, right? But in the spiritual world, right, in the sort of spiritual battle of it all, we as human beings and as souls and all kinds of as souls, we are meant to bring change, evolution, revolution, meant creativity, freedom to all the life energies that we come encounter with, even the negative entities or whatever it is, right? The goblins, the judgment, right? The judgment of it all, right? The great fear of all these sort of energies is the judgment, and you're judging your ability to have victory over that, right? And it's because the human condition has you programmed that your power against this devil power, this entity or this goblin power is no match, right? That you don't have the immense power within yourself to be able to bring, right, whatever relationship with that thing or with yourself to a higher vibration of an experience and a learning lesson of your nobility and your creativity and your sovereignty. Right. So just wanted to discuss briefly about the spiritual world and going more into the spiritual battle, right, of it all. Again, it's in almost every sort of spiritual script that we really have, even when it comes to the Epic of Gilgamesh. That's one of the earliest stories documented in cuneiform in Mesopotamia, right? And again, it has the same sort of battle, right? Or seduction, or temptation, or greed, or these experiences of fear and anxiety and security and learning, right? Learning one's weakness and learning one's strength and learning one's lack of power, right? Or learning one's great stamina, right? So many of these stories, and that's basically what all stories are based on, even today. It's about the spiritual world and about the spiritual battle of it all. We're always constantly sort of battling with these higher vibrations that are calling to us, right? A created destiny that's calling to us, and these lower vibrations that are also calling to us. And that could be the friends, the family, the traumas, the human condition that's kind of calling us to just to keep. It's the past, right? It's the past echoing that we get, we listen to the point where we overindulge in it, and then we get caught in it, and then we get interlocked with it, right? But always that creative destiny is like calling to us, right? It's that higher experience, it's that higher learning, and it's being able to serve, right? To have prosperity and reciprocity, right? And just like any of the great stories, mostly the stories, nobody really gets there, really, especially in our sort of current, like, sort of writing, right, or storytelling. A lot of people don't really get to that spiritual sort of victory, right? They get the love, they get the happiness, but when it comes to the creative discovery, right, the sort of wisdom, right, some stories it doesn't really come to that, right? It doesn't really come to that. It kind of it sort of it cuts off, or that person doesn't get that, right? They don't get that. They don't get there. They don't get all the way there, right? But in a lot of in the spiritual scripts, it's very much about getting to through the journey to the wisdom of it, right? And we see the wisdom as coming into your vision, right? Talk about like that third eye, looking out and becoming visionary, right? Through the experience, through the learning, and through the serving, right? The service to yourself that over time really puts so much energy on the vision, whatever it is, that it becomes visionary, meaning it establishes itself, it takes root, it grows, it excels through time, right? Because time is, for many, our enemy, because, we're spending too much time at the bar scene, or it can become our great friend, depending on the time we spend getting to know ourselves and knowing what we want and nourishing ourselves, right? Because at the bar scene, it's almost like somebody's taking from us, right? Or we're taking away time from us, right? We're losing time. And for a lot of us at in the way of knowing ourselves and knowing what we want in that kind of scene, right? Usually it's a scene of creativity, right? Where you're in a community of creative people. That's usually where you're getting more from time, right? It could be 4 hours, and you get that 4 hours becomes 8 hours of utilized time, that you come out of it and you feel more of yourself. You feel like you're more of yourself, not less. You feel like you're more of yourself. You feel like you have more to offer. You have more to experience. You have more to learn in a way that is nourishing you and bringing you towards that prosperous sort of victorious state. And unfortunately, the great battle of it all is that, we're not meant to have it, supposedly. Somebody told us all that we're not meant to have that prosperity, that reciprocity. So we attack each other, we get envious, we try to knock each other down, we just send all this negativity, all these, whatever these spells or whatever it is that we do to each other and ourselves. We try to destroy each other, we try to destroy ourselves, and that's just the greatest sort of programming on this planet, to basically, the less amount of people that have that prosperity and that reciprocity and have that spiritual victory, the more of humanity as a whole is basically bound, right, to whatever sort of agenda or whatever sort of matrix is going on. We're just bound to it. The less amount of people who have the spiritual victory, who have the nobility and sovereignty and the creativity of their own sort of, inner, that third eye, sort of center point and that sort of balance, right, to the crises that's always going to be, right? The less we have of these type of people, the more that people feel bound, right? And the less change will happen, right? The less likely changes will happen for the freedom of the people. So this is constantly, we talk about the freedom of the people as the constant battle, right? And we will always continue to face adversities, our demons, our devils, our whatever fears, insecurities. We will constantly face the human condition because it's a must. We all know that we have to. It's just a matter of time, right? We have to have a spiritual victory on this planet. At least 20% of the population needs to have a sense of spiritual victory on this planet, right? They say that 20% at least needs to have a sense of spiritual victory, or needs to be at that sort of, vibration of creative destiny for the human species to continue to go. Without that, the human species, it just kind of, it would erase itself. It'd be like, okay, like, what's, we're not just here to just be moping around kind of thing. Wandering souls, lost souls, earthbound souls, just kind of repeating and cycling again and again, right? So the ways in which we overcome, again, it's all in the divine timing of our readiness, our strength, and our training, right? is really about coming into our most authentic self, coming into our craftsmanship, and coming into our our vision, right? Our vision. And again, it all goes back to our vision, right? If you have a vision of, fuck shit kind of thing, that's what you're gonna get. If you have a vision of poor me, poor that, that's what you're gonna get. If you have a vision of just random sex, you're just gonna get random whatever connections, right? If your vision is creativity, you're just going to be continue to be fed creatively. If your vision is I want higher love or healing, that's what your vision's going to be, right? So the vision, once you put a vision, you start to get a response from it. The vision will speak to you. The vision will begin to instruct you, begin to tell you what you need to be doing, right? In your moment with yourself, not with anybody else, with yourself, right? The vision will give you a necessity. It is necessary, literally the vision will tell you, it is necessary for you to take on a practice. That's basically the first thing your vision will do. It is necessary for you to take on a practice. And that practice will be something of a prayer. Again, it'd be an archer, if you're a warrior, or be something of creativity that you will be it will be demanded of you to practice, right? And the same thing goes if your vision is, fuck shit, right? If that's your vision, the vision will, okay, you need a practice, and that practice will most likely be of a habit or behavior or pattern that basically is just a fuck shit sort of habit, right? So again, none of these are bad, right? That's a bad, reality, right? It's just an experience. We can judge it all day and we can say, yeah, that's a lower experience, meaning it's not one that's going to really bring about spiritual victory, but bring about stagnancy or bring about sort of becoming a earthbound person, right? Which is, not something we're like, But, many people, I mean, you can incarnate, as many times, you can incarnate billions, I don't know, millions, maybe billion, I don't know. Right? You can incarnate on this planet as many times as you want. It's just the matter of fact is each time you incarnate, and you don't just, I'm just gonna fuck shit in this life, and the next life I'll be prosperous. It don't work. Every lifetime follows you. Every lifetime follows you. So when you come into this incarnation, everything of your past incarnation goes with you. So let's say you had a lot of spiritual victory in your previous incarnations, and like for example, let's say you had this sense of spiritual victory, but you were taken out. A lot of us were, right? Especially those individuals who were warriors, saying our earth angel. Most likely y'all were taken out. It doesn't matter that you were taken out. The power you've gained that will go with you into the next life. The mastery you gained will go into the next life, even if you were taken out, right? It doesn't work like that. You take people out, and then they that's how they lose all their power in that particular reality, in that incarnation. But the power they've cultivated, it goes into the soul and subtle body, and it goes with them wherever they go. So if they want to go to a planet somewhere else, it goes with them. The same thing goes with, I call incarnations of, what do you call a dud? Right, a dud. Right, where you didn't, you just, you wandering lost, and dud as I see it as you're very dull, right? You took on a very dull incarnation, right? And you didn't really move anything, right? Right? That goes with you into the next life. And all the ties you created, that goes with you into the next life, right? So again, it's like, it doesn't matter, like, and that's the kind of the incarnational sort of the sort of, I guess, dilemma or bummer is that it really is in this moment now that decides all your future incarnations. Not, oh well, eventually, and I'll get it. It's in this moment now that decides all that incarnation. The more that you get into that spiritual victory, and the more that you open up your body and begin to work with the whole body system, the mind, the body, and the spirit, the more that this moment now, when you go and the two eyes become the third eye, right, where you project out to your creative destiny. You can go there even in your future lives, and you can kind of backtrack and see what you practiced in this moment now that actually puts that into you, right? Put that, even future lives or your future self, put that into you. Because it's a momentum. We get a momentum. The stronger the momentum is you have with yourself, just like with any talent, skill, the more hours, the momentum you have, the more that you deserve, right? The stronger that deserve is, the stronger the protection is, and the stronger the talent is in what it is that you know about yourself. You know who you are and what you want. It's very talented in that. You're very talented in that, right? And that's basically visionary. You know who you are, you know what you want, and that creates a person who's very, very decisive, very, very clear, and it has this openness, this sort of vastness or this expansiveness that then can like bring in the flow of love and the flow of higher energy, right? Creativity. Because if you don't know yourself, you don't know what you want, like the energy, it wants to come into you, but it can't, because you're not wise with yourself, right? You're not available to yourself, right? And that sort of higher energy, it only comes into those who are available to themselves, who are paying attention, who listen, right? Who are intuitive, who have a self-knowledge. It's like being wise with yourself. That's like that sort of field of like, I know myself, I know what I want, is when you're wise with yourself. When you're not wise to yourself, the energy is there of higher creativity and higher imagination, higher energy, but it just can't come into you. It can't, because you don't have the appropriate you're not the appropriate match for that energy, right? The energy is like, it wants to come into a container that it knows the container can actually do something with it, right? It's not going to come into a person that is not going to do anything with it, right? It will go to just a different person. And that's why we have to think with higher energy creativity. It wants to come to earth. Dang right it wants to. But it's not going to come into a vessel that doesn't know itself, doesn't know what it wants. It's not going to come into a vessel that isn't wise with themselves, isn't wise with their time, isn't wise with their own life force, and isn't wise with their choices and decisions, right? Because then that higher energy will come in, and it won't move. It'll just kind of just, okay, and that's not what the higher energy, the higher imagination, higher creativity is about. It wants to come into a vessel that actually has a practice, or has a sort of an available to themselves, right? That's receptive. And we say human that we're receptive, but in many ways we're not receptive, right? Because anything that changes us, or anything that really, demands of us to practice our creative destiny, we kind of we flunk out. We flunk out. We create excuses and sabotage and delays and all these kinds of things, because we're just, right, we're still have this conflict with our own victory, right? We have this conflict with our own victory. That's, at the end of the day, we all have a conflict with our inner victory, right? That conflict is always like, I'm not good enough, or the shame, or the emotional pain, or the distraction, or the relationship, or whatever it is that just feels like a dilemma, or just feels like a blockage. That's the battle. That's the conflict between us, who we are now, and getting to the creative destiny that is literally kind of knocking on the crown chakra, like wanting to come in. It's a matter of fact of wising up, being wise with our time, and organizing our life so that our experience, our learning, and our service can be one of that's going to well nourish us. And that's the thing about many things we have. Nothing is judged, right? It's just, we want to be nourished, right? We want to be nourished, and we want to be activated, and we want to be inspired, and we want to connect with our spirituality, so that our prosperity and reciprocity can really have mastery, right? Because there are many people who, you know, have this wealth, but then they're like, it's draining the planet kind of thing, right? Or it's not very it's not very of a creative sort of thing, right? More of like a destructive kind of thing, right? So that's why that spirituality, you call the spiritual world and the spiritual battle, is basically a battle against your own spirituality. That's all that it is, right? And there's so many programs, like, you know, you're the religious and this, that, the tradition, all of these programs are basically to really have a step away from our inner spirituality and give all our attention to these outer sort of spiritualities. But at the end of the day, the power, the real power that gets us through these battles is not about going to the religious. It's more so about going into our own sort of spirituality, right? Our own sense of beauty and artistry and creativity, and that can be ignited and activated by the religious or whatever it is, because it is. But at the end of the day, it's really the spirituality that we cultivate in being wise with ourselves, knowing ourselves and knowing what we want, having a vision, becoming visionary, that actually is the blade of truth that can help us to cut through, right? Cut through, kind of slick through, kind of sly, sort of strategize and move through at these sort of angles, right? These sort of angles, these sort of zigzag angles that help us to get where we want to go with less amount of these sort of dangers, or these sort of you know, sort of attacks that can come in, right? We get very, very talented at knowing the self, knowing what we want. We also get very gifted at being able to navigate through, right? Become like a great leader, or like a great soldier, or like a great general, right? Where we just can kind of go through and in a way that's going to give us the greatest sort of chance of our victory. So I'm going to leave you guys with this, and Satnam.